Previously on Gadgets and Games.
Now is the time. We are reviewing WrestleFest. What is the significance of this belt on the wall right by the WrestleFest console? There's got to be some connection there.
Best of 49 tag match. And I'd like to point out that I won. And then I retired the belt.
Oh, I want the belt.
You don't want to do that.
I want the belt, Anderson.
If I beat you, I get to host Gadgets and Games from now on.
No!
What just happened there? Did I just win your segment, Sal? Am I the new host of Gadgets and Games?
You're watching a brand new edition of Gadgets and Games. Sal Liccardo is out, Curtis Anderson is in. I'm so excited. Now, no more of this Xbox or PlayStation 3. We're going back in time. We're going to blow the dust off the original NES and take a look at 1989's Shadowgate. All right, Mr. John Foster, you got the call earlier this week. Sal Liccardo is off Gadgets and Games. Curtis Anderson is on Gadgets and Games. I won the segment last week in a best of tag team match on my WrestleFest console. So, welcome to classic video game reviews.
I'm glad to be here.
Are you?
It's not so bad having Sal not around.
Okay. So, from now on, it's all going to be Nintendo. I'm just going to give you a heads up. There's going to be no PlayStation or Xbox. So, we're going to kick things off with the new direction of Gadgets and Games today with 1989's Shadowgate. You dusted it off this morning, you put it in, drank some coffee, played a little Shadowgate.
Yep.
This is kind of your first run at it. Came out in 1989, the year you were born.
Yeah, I did do some looking up on this, but I definitely remember Shadowgate just as being a classic game, and I had no problem going in and delving into this kind of point-and-click adventure, which, you know, I've definitely still had some fun with adventure games, and Shadowgate seemed like it was onto something great back in the day.
There were 3 games that came out like this. There's Shadowgate, Deja Vu, and Uninvited, all by Kemco, and this one just seemed to be the one that ascended, that people talked about. Do you still today in 2010, is there any rumblings of Shadowgate? Do people still talk about it? Because it had a couple sequels. It had one on Game Boy, it had Shadowgate 64 for the Nintendo 64, and they were working on another one, Shadowgate Rising, which got scrapped because the GameCube was released, and then so they just kind of...
Yeah, which wouldn't be, I mean, even if only they had done like a GameCube release or something like that. But no, I can definitely see where how much, you know, Shadowgate is influential, but you're right, yeah, all those like kind of Mac Venture games came out, and kind of the reason that it's still so great today is you just enter a blank room, but there's text that kind of fills in your mind everything that you need to know, like a dark dreary castle, everything. And you get those, like, you go on forums, there are purists that say, I just want another Shadowgate game, I don't care about these games coming out. So yeah, Shadowgate still, like, the name just feels familiar, and yeah, in terms of gaming, it's definitely a classic. I had fun playing it, but I found myself dying every other room in the game. So the difficulty's up there.
I think it's unique because I can't really figure out who this was marketed for. You know, in 1989, not a lot of adults were playing Nintendo. It was still,
Yeah.
you know, we were yet to evolve into where the adults, it was acceptable to play video games like it is in 2010.
Yeah.
And this is a dark game.
Yeah.
Like, you go into every room, there's 10 ways to die, and it's not, you're not just a character like Mario that falls in a hole. This horrible music starts playing, and then it gives you a paragraph of how you're dying. It says, you know, you've fallen out the window and you broke your legs and you can only crawl for so long before the wolves devour you, or you could commit suicide. Like, it's a kind of a dark game.
I mean, even the storyline itself, where you try to save some warlock demon from summoning a behemoth from the gates of hell, seems a little bit that, you know, would get past the Nintendo censorship, but it did.
But it did.
And it actually works quite well on a Nintendo D-pad. You're just kind of clicking the cursor over the move. You get to select just like the right room, the forward room, everything. So yeah, it's controls kind of, they seem ancient, but they still work. So
the thing that I loved about this game that made it so popular with me and my group of friends back in the day is that it's kind of like an unlimited amount of players. It doesn't really matter who's controlling the joystick because it's all solving problems and thought process, so everyone can be yelling at once, and it's not just one person, you know, you're not waiting for your turn.
yeah.
Is there anything in 2010, does that like lend itself now, or are there any other games that are kind of this format?
Something that comes to mind is, it's a bit of a stretch, but the fantasy MMO, stuff like World of Warcraft and kind of those games that are inspired off tabletop sort of adventure games. I mean, really attribute a lot to something like Shadowgate. I mean, you're right, you could write on the back like 16-player co-op, but that's
Yeah,
just because
really.
everyone's sitting around a
Yeah.
couch playing this. But really the fact that this game kind of lends itself to all those games like Warcraft that came out, and kind of now, obviously now it's actual co-op plays out there, but it lends itself to pretty much any other role-playing game out there. Like Oblivion comes to mind, where it's finally a huge realized 3D world, but Shadowgate had that in mind too, so.
Good or bad, I think one of the things it's most famous for actually is the soundtrack, the music.
Yeah.
I mean, that
gets to you.
inside your head. It gives you like a creepy Exorcist vibe after a while, where there's not things jumping out, nothing's really scaring you, but you just get creeped out.
Yeah, that 8-bit sound definitely gets in your head and stays there.
If you go on YouTube, there's all these people like playing piano versions of it, and it's just epic. But yeah, I can't stress enough how dark it was for 1989. Like at one point you go into a tower and there's like a blonde girl in a ripped dress chained to the ground, and you're like, whoa, this is what? Nintendo 1989?
Yeah, how did that get by there? But
Wow. But so you enjoyed playing it?
I actually did enjoy playing it. Like I said, I woke up early in the morning, had a bit of coffee going, and I was perfectly fine with focusing on this kind of point-and-click adventure. I didn't think I was actually going to be as kind of absorbed into it as I was. I mean, but kind of right off the beginning, you're just facing this door to Castle Shadowgate, and you kind of get into this storyline where the text is kind of telling you everything you need to know. I'm perfectly fine with reading text on screen. I mean, maybe
Not a lot of people.
A lot
do,
of it,
though.
I
I
think,
think
just
that's why this game kind of
yeah,
failed.
but that's what's really kind of creating everything in your head. It's not really what necessarily what you see on screen, but all the text, everything really helps bring me into this adventure. Mind you, a bit of frustration from dying a bunch, but the trial and error was the name of the game. I mean, even the N64 one had the whole formula of a lot of puzzles. You know, the Nintendo one almost holds the test of time more because the N64 one's trying to be realistic, so it might be more dated in that aspect. Shadowgate was, it's just 8-bit. It's not trying to be more than it is, but
It was dark, and yeah, as you mentioned, it was frustrating.
Yeah.
Because there were times where you're like, why doesn't this work? I'm using the key on the door. Don't tell me it's not the right key.
Yeah.
And it gives you the, if you hit select, it gives you a like tip.
Yeah.
And after like the third screen, the tip is, don't give up now.
Yeah,
and you're
good
like, "Gah!
or
It's 3 in the morning. I need to beat the hellhound. What do I use on this
or you
thing?"
pick the wrong option one time and it says you were wasting your time.
Yeah.
And it's like, what am I supposed to be doing?
Yeah.
But that's half the fun when you look back.
When I found the blonde girl chained to the floor, I tried to speak to her, and it said, "What you expected didn't happen." And I was like, that's kind of
Yeah, or you have the option
that
to-
carried on with my life.
Yeah, you have the option to, do stuff like hit yourself too.
Yeah,
Like, it's like not a smart move.
Yeah, and you could turn the sword on yourself, and it was like suicide is not going to help you in
Yeah.
your quest. But here's what happened: it punctured your heart, and you bled out, and you're just like, "Whoa, wow, Nintendo!"
Yeah, again, censorship. This game
Exactly.
slipped through, which is great.
All right, we're out of time. John,
Yes.
final thoughts. I made you play it tonight. You really, to get the full Shadowgate experience, drink a bunch of Red Bull and play it all night. Like, play it till the sun comes
Yeah.
up. It'll mess you up.
The song will stay in your head.
Yeah, oh yeah, it'll be there. Thoughts?
I say, in terms of the gaming canon and what you should be playing, this game is extremely influential. The fact that it's on the original Nintendo means you don't have to track it down on PC. We've got it here at High Tech, just sitting here in the showcase. Anyone can pick it up, really. A lot of NES ROMs out there. You can just go. I don't necessarily support ROMs, but if you have this game, go pick it up, and it's still worth a play.
Well, that does it for another edition of Gadgets and Games. I'm Curtis Anderson. See you next week.